All right, so we're gonna go through warehousing and fulfillment now. So it's gonna be really important for you and really practical because you've really got two options. You've got self-fulfillment and you've got third-party fulfillment. Now, some of you are drop shippers and you're gonna be saying, oh, well, of course I'm doing third-party fulfillment. And some of you are you're gonna be starting your own company. You just created your own product and you're saying, of course I'm gonna be shipping my own products, right? But it's a little more complicated than that. I wanna walk through our two options, our self-fulfillment or our third-party warehousing. And I want you to really consider the pros and cons of each. Let's dig in right now. Let's dig into self-fulfillment. And self-fulfillment is just you doing the shipping yourself. So maybe you have a warehouse that you've already established, or maybe you're just gonna be doing it out of a room in your house because you're just getting started. Both are fully acceptable, but I want you to understand the pros and cons of each before you really commit to it. So the pro of self-fulfillment is obviously more control over the packaging itself. You're doing it, right? So you can control the failure rate of your shipments when they go out the door. If you really get a lot of padding in there, you can put goodies in your packet. And so when I say goodies, maybe it's marketing collateral, maybe it's a QR code, and this QR code, let's say you sell exercise equipment. Here's a good example. You sell exercise equipment, and it's a QR code to take you through some how-to guides on how to use that exercise equipment. So what's coming in with it is a value proposition. Maybe what you're sending in there is it's a coupon, 10% off your next purchase. Those work. It's classic, it's tried and true. So we use this coupon code in the next 3 months, get 10% off, 20% off, whatever. And those are useful because, I know that's cutting into your margin. And I talked before about how important it is to have a good margin, but getting a new customer does cost money. So there's a cost per acquisition with every new customer. So maybe you'd be willing to incentivize a returning customer to spend a little bit less, because if my cost per acquisition is 10% of getting every customer anyway, maybe I'm okay with giving 10% off because it's just the same, right? It's no different. And I'm getting a repeat customer. So you can consider putting goodies in there with it. And that's a pro of you doing the packaging yourself. Or I'm saying yourself, maybe it's your team. Maybe you've already scaled up a little bit. Maybe you're already a business. You're just now getting into Shopify. So maybe your guys are doing it, but it's the same idea. Your business will have control over what goes into it. I've got a strike through right here because I want to give you a pro tip, you the business owner. Stop putting candy in your packages. It's worn out. A lot of people are doing it. You just don't need to do it. They're putting bubble gum, they're putting sweet tarts, they're putting lollipops in their packaging. And that's like the first time I talk to anybody I do any consulting and they say, yeah, I think I'm thinking about putting some candy in my packaging. Like, find something that creates long-term value. Do the QR code, actually create some value. The candy, it's worn out. It's been tried. Stickers are common. Stickers do work too. They're cheap. Some people just really like stickers. 95% of the people are going to throw them out, but for the percentage that do keep them, they're going to stick them onto something. And so it's a pretty low cost way to get your name out there. It's kind of fun. If you like your logo, that kind of creates a little bit of reciprocity between you and the customer. So that's a perfectly reasonable one to do as well, as putting some stickers in your packaging. So you also have the advantage of complex orders. So let's say that when someone places an order, maybe it is one item that they're ordering, but there's 10 different things that go into that order. It's going to be very hard to get a third-party warehouse to say, okay, so this exercise equipment, the basic package that they ordered, it gets an exercise band, and it gets a 10-pound weight, and it gets a headband, and all these things. It's going to be a lot easier for you to do if you're the one doing the fulfillment. So that's also worth considering is third-party warehousing. It's not impossible, but it's a little more difficult to do these packages and complex orders than it would be for you to do it yourself. The pros, of course, there's no warehousing cost. So if you're doing it in your spare room, you don't have to pay rent on it. And in fact, it can even become an advantage because, and I'm not an accountant, I'm not your tax accountant, this is not financial advice. Please talk to your accountant, but you can use your spare rooms. If you're using it for storage, shipping, business, you can use it. You can write it off on your taxes, even if it's part of your mortgage. So those are all definite advantages of doing the self-fulfillment, but it doesn't come without disadvantages. So let's talk about that here real quick. So some of the cons, your shipping rates will be worse than if some other high volume where all they do is ship, they're gonna have a really good shipping rate. So, and it's not just the shipping rate either. So let's say a warehouse that all they do is accept items and they ship them back out. They're going to buy boxes in bulk. They're gonna buy packing peanuts in bulk. They're going to have labor that works very, very efficiently. They may even have robots picking. And so their cost per each order going out the door, it's just gonna be a whole lot less than yours. It's just a fact. And when, let's say you work with USPS or UPS, your volume decides your pricing tier. So not everybody gets the same rate. There's not just one business rate when you walk into UPS. So you walk in the door at UPS and I ship a 10-inch by 10-inch package and it's 5 pounds. Your rate, your personal rate, is going to be like 3 to 4 times what a business that has like the lowest UPS rate, what they're going to have. And so you get to take advantage of their shipping rates. Now, of course, they have fees that they levy on you, but you're going to get to take advantage of their rock bottom rates that they have with UPS or USPS, where when you are starting out, you're a brand new UPS account, you're not going to have any bulk discounts at all. So that could be a disadvantage. Another disadvantage is pickups. So I've given the example of if you already have your warehouse, you're an existing business, this may not be as much of an issue, but let's say you're working out of your house and you're doing the tax break out of your spare bedroom. Let's say you get 10 orders in a day. What do you do with them once they come in? UPS, depending on where you live, maybe they'll send a truck to come to you, but if you've got 1 or 2 packages each time, they're not going to want to work with you. So all of a sudden, every other day, that's becoming part of your day. You're driving over to UPS, and you're handing the guy 2 packages. You've already got printed out the label, so you're just dropping it off, but it's maybe 2, 3, 4 times a week you're not driving to UPS. So the actual logistics of getting the product out of your door to the customer, that becomes complicated. So that's another advantage of the third-party warehousing is it kind of all just happens. It doesn't scale well. That's a big one. So if you are in your third bedroom, and I'm going to use this phrase a lot. We're not building this to fail, right? You're not building this business to fail. You're building it to succeed. I think by taking this course, you're going to. So why take steps that aren't going to scale well? So if you ship out of your spare bedroom, let's say one day Kim Kardashian, she picks up your product and features it on her Instagram, and you sell 10,000 units where you'd been selling 10 units a day. Now what? I mean, it's great news, right? You just made a lot of sales, but now what? You call your cousin, you call your friend, you call everybody you can to come pack some boxes. Now you don't have pickups. You got to start taking all this stuff to UPS. Really, now what? And so we're building this thing to succeed. So when you have a third-party warehouse, if Kim Kardashian picks up your product and 10,000 orders come in, it's what they do. It's no problem. It scales well. So it's something to consider that you are building this to succeed. You are building this to scale. You are building this to ideally become your main source of income. So take the steps now to make that happen, to make that true. The final con of that is, and I bolded it here because it is really, really important. There's, when it comes to entrepreneurship, there's working and then there's working to build value. And so the trap that I've caught with a lot of people that I've worked with over the years is, well, man, I spent 7 hours shipping stuff out today. I worked hard on my business. I worked real hard on my business. But you did nothing to create new content. You didn't get new customers. All you did was put stuff in boxes, right? And so that's pass-through work. It is work. It's something that needs to be done, but that didn't create any new value for your company. So let's say you're doing this on the side right now. You're creating, you're blocking off 3 hours a day, let's say, to work on this thing. If 2.5 of those hours are spent putting stuff in boxes, you're really only spending a half hour a day building your brand. That's a problem. So what the third-party warehousing enables you to do is that 3 hours that you set aside, that's all going to be spent doing high-value work. That's going to be spent marketing, advertising, finding freelancers. Maybe it's taking photography. Maybe it's actually using your products and showing people how to use them. And it's not just putting stuff in boxes. So it's a trap. It really is a trap to get stuck with, oh, I'm working hard. We're shipping stuff out. I'm putting stuff in boxes. We're doing the good thing right now. Because it isn't high-value work. So don't fall into that trap. So let's talk about third-party fulfillment services. So you've probably caught on by now. I'm a fan of these. The reason, scaling, price, all those things. And all this product's got to sit in a warehouse. If you're going to succeed, it's going to sit in a warehouse anyway. So you might as well send it to a third-party warehouse that specializes in it. So here's some of the pros to it. I mentioned it before, cheaper shipping labels, scaling infinitely. So some of these bigger third-party warehousing, I've got some examples down here. We're actually going to click through to one of them here in a second, but they've got dozens of warehouses around the country. I mean, they cannot run out of space for your stuff. It's just not going to happen. And so you'll be able to keep sending more stuff. Let's say your product line starts to expand. You're getting more and more different kinds of products for your exercise line. Now you've got different sizes of exercise bands. Now you're getting heavy weights. Now you're getting all these different things. Now they'll take care of it for you. It's super valuable. Another really, really valuable piece is pallet shipping and wholesale shipping. So A couple slides ago, we talked about B2B and wholesaling for your brand. Pallet shipping is going to be super, super valuable because if you want to establish some of those relationships, if somebody from you, they go ahead and they buy 500 of those units, how do you get it to them? It's not going to be cheap to send all those things by parcel. You're going to want to send it by a truck. And so out of your house, are you going to set up a pallet? You don't have a forklift. It's not going to happen. So many of these places have the ability to do B2B sales as well as B2C sales simultaneously. So that really sets you up to be, even if you're just one person, you can be one person with a really advanced warehousing setup. And that's a huge, huge, huge advantage. Some are even Prime eligible. So you won't even have to send some inventory to Amazon and some inventory at your warehouse. These bigger warehousing companies, they are actually able to get you Prime on your products if you want to sell on Amazon. We'll talk about marketplaces later on. That's going to be a huge advantage for you. So ultimately, I try not to make decisions for you. This is going to be one of the few times that I do it. I want to just give you options, but ultimately, this is the option if you're confident that your business is going to succeed, to go third-party warehousing. In the long term, maybe you do become the next Amazon, and if you are, come say hello to me. But until then, this is the option for companies that all the way up to $100 million a year. This is the option for companies that are looking to scale quickly and don't want their warehousing to hold them back. So I highly recommend it. There are cons though. I'm not going to gloss over the cons. You do have less control. So over what goes in the packaging, over the level of care of the package. So, what I mentioned before is the failure rate. That failure rate, it's probably going to go up if you use a third-party warehouse. If you are a good shipper, now if you're trash at shipping, then maybe your failure rate improves by sending your stuff to a third-party warehouse. But if you are taking a lot of time and a lot of value and a lot of packing peanuts, and you really want this thing to come well, then when it goes to this third-party warehouse, you're probably going to see less care put into these shipments. And that's just the reality. These people ship out hundreds of thousands of packages a month. That's just how they're going to do it. And so there's also going to be extra fees for personalizing those products. I mentioned before, you're going to put collateral, QR codes, discounts, things like that. They offer that at some of these places, but sometimes it comes to extra fees, and some places don't even offer it. You sell your product and that's it. There are options for them to, okay, you get a leave-in, get some collateral that gets put in there. And so you can personalize it, and they'll say, oh, that's another 25 cents a shipment. That's another 50 cents a shipment, something like that. So then you have to do that math on, okay, so what's my adoption rate of that QR code if I'm spending 50 cents per shipment? Is this breaking even? Is this positive for me? It becomes more of a business decision than if you were just doing it yourself. And the final one is fees. So you have fees to receive, fees to ship, fees to store, fees for this, fees for that. They do have fees associated with it. So the biggest one is when you send all of your pallets to them, think of it as your own little mini warehouse. You have to pay for the actual square footage of the pallet that you have there. So the good part is you're not paying for a giant warehouse and all the air conditioning and all of those things, but you are still paying for your portion of that warehouse that you're taking up, as long as your pallet sits there, in most cases. So it's something to consider. Is there are ongoing fees associated, but there's ongoing fees associated with having your own warehouse. There's ongoing fees associated with shipping out of your own house, like I mentioned. So how are you weighing those pros and cons? Which one is right for you? I have some examples here at the bottom. These are all companies that do third-party shipping. So there's ShipBob is a really big one. Deliver with 2 R's. And Deliver was actually just purchased by Shopify. And my third one there is SFN, Shopify Fulfillment Network. So Shopify is starting now, and maybe by the time you watch this, they're going to be much deeper into it. But they actually just acquired Deliver, and Shopify is trying to begin doing their own fulfillment for merchants like you. And so it does start begging the question of, so if Shopify starts to do all the fulfillment and they have your back end of your business, then what is your business if not just a storefront? But I'm just the messenger. So Shopify is starting to get deeper into the fulfillment game by acquiring Deliver. But as of right now, there are 2 separate entities. Again, by the time you watch this, maybe those aren't 2 separate things. Maybe it's all just Shopify Fulfillment Network. So let's click on ShipBob here. The reason I want to do that, and I just want to give you an example of what the fees might be. So I've clicked on here. I've taken us straight to the request pricing sheet here on ShipBob, and what they have is Rough estimates on what fulfillment might cost, depending on where you send it. So they have some samples. Here's a sample T-shirt or a sample subscription box or some sample supplements. But maybe you've got a pretty big package. So maybe it's 16 by 16 by 10, and it's by 10, not one, and it's 25 pounds. So a little bit bigger of a shipment. So you can get an idea for costs. And so for some of you that have already shipped a few times, maybe you're spinning up your Shopify business, you've already done a few shipments, compare this to what you're doing. We've got a list of your various fees, but so we're talking $18 to $21 to ship that. Now that's a pretty big package, that's a pretty heavy package. So $18 to $21, that's a pretty good rate if you can end up in there. So I would of course recommend doing that before you jump in with one of these third-party warehousing suppliers. Is what you can just do is reach out to each one and say, hey, give me a price quote. Let me know, I've got 4 pallets coming in and each pallet's got 500 units and on average they're this weight. Just give me a quote and they'll do that for you and just see what makes sense. You don't necessarily have to go with one or the other. Go with the one that is the right fit for you. And so, I hope that's enlightening for you. I know I may have kind of moved you a little bit toward the third-party side of that. There are obviously advantages to self-fulfillment. If you've got really complex items, if you really want control over your packaging, then by all means do it yourself. I'm not saying that it's going to kill your business. All I'm saying is that third-party warehousing is something that people don't consider as often, and it's super, super, super valuable. It could really save you time, ultimately save you money. It's really worth going towards. So just consider it.